Oh, you look at that, we're live and we're about to do this officially. Are you ready, mate? Because we're going on air at the same time. It is. It's Edge Radio Australia, of course. The time for the greater wealth. Just hit 1 o'clock here on Monday. Got Derek here with a lot of information, mate. You're going to bring our way. What have
There's
you got for us?
so much happening in the world right now.
Well, come on, fill us in.
Locally, internationally, nationally. I could be here all day, but
You
I
could.
won't be. But, it's really interesting. Travis sent this across my desk this week, and
Right.
he pointed out that there's a plan for businesses to be hit with hefty fines in Australia if they refuse cash payments. I don't know if you've gone to any cafeterias and they go, FPOST only,
seeing it all over
and
the
that
place,
sort
yeah.
of thing. Well, it's actually getting to a point where a business can't refuse or accept it if they don't, carry physical money.
Well, here's me thinking. I actually thought it was the law, right, that you had to actually take, real cash currency. I thought currency is currency, right?
It's legal tender.
Yeah.
And it's there for the settlement of all debts. And if it can settle, tax bills, it certainly can settle debts between individuals as well, and businesses to companies. So that's important to recognize, and it's crucial, I think. In fact, the person who really brought it into the public limelight as far as the politics was concerned was Bob Katter, the member for Kennedy. And he was highlighting something that was really, really important. He said, I'm really wanting this to come through, because he said we had floods in Queensland not too long ago. And, he said, it came to his attention. He was trying to pay for his lunch at Parliament House, at the local Parliament House there. Or,
right.
I can't remember if it was Canberra or state, whichever, but he was trying to play it, and they wouldn't accept it. And he's like, this is Australian legal tender. You have to accept it. And so that brought a highlight to him. He says, look, I want it there because in an emergency, when the systems are down, the ATMs aren't working, you need it.
Happens all the time too. And what about even just simple, like when your bank has maintenance sort of issues, or not even issues, right? They've got to be down for 3 hours. What do you do for 3 hours? Oh, look, I'll just go to bed. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And the app isn't working either. I've had that on my phone. You're trying to get to pay for something at the till, and the app's not working. You're going,
that's right. It is ridiculous. And of course, I can see them wanting to get rid of the physical cards as well. We'll just ultimately have it only in our phone, or the chip in our wrist, maybe.
And that's a dangerous slippery slope to go there.
So,
the whole beast system there. You definitely don't want to go down that path at all. But they're also saying it's difficult for Australians in regional areas, including the elderly, older folk, who just, it's hard to get in a car and travel for 3 hours to the next town.
Of course it is.
We are in a country that is, big in terms of its borders and distances between each other, and you've really got to calculate just how much fuel you're going to burn between one town to the next, and whether you can make it or not.
Don't worry about it, mate. All the cars will be electric, and we'll all be stuck on the side of the road. It's okay. I mean, that's why there's right now sitting in ports and warehouses a big bunch of Teslas they can't sell. Honestly, it's like, okay, I'm a big believer in if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Okay, improve on things, always develop, okay? That's great, okay? But right now we're living in a world, right, where, cash still works, okay? And it has a number of advantages. It solves problems, right, that can't be solved the other way around. Why not leave it in place? Absolutely insane. And again, I mean, I laugh about the electric car thing, but it's very real.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's certain things, I don't want to go to electric car, because in Australia it's just not practical, especially if you're going regional.
That's right.
I mean, you've got to really think ahead. It's like planning. It's like a flight plan. You've got to think, where can I recharge to get to the next town, and how many k's from that point to that point will it be, and when I get to that point, can I recharge? Whereas the old motor engines, you just don't have to worry about it. There's plenty of stations along the way.
That's right. I want to get in my car. I don't want to actually be planning to go to Mars here. Okay, I just want to go. You know what? When the needle goes low, I need more juice, and away we go, right? Yep. Simple as that. And this is, again, all comes down to freedom, really. It really honestly does.
And there's enough challenges on that. I found I was trying to come back from Albany recently, last year, and we couldn't go down. You kind of look at your fuel gauge and go, yeah, we've got enough to get to the next town. We had to do a mighty detour because of bushfires. The road, Albany Highway was closed.
Right.
So we had to go back up to town. I thought, do I need it or not? I think I'll be all right. I'm finding myself out in the middle of nowhere at 7 o'clock at night. Can't get mobile phone range as well.
But hang on, if you don't get mobile phone range, it means your phone can't pay for that fuel anyway.
And you can't make a phone call to the RAC or someone to pick you up and help you as well. So it's something, after that, hey, I got a free voucher at Super Cheap Auto, and I bought myself some physical maps.
What? I didn't even know they still made them, but okay.
But for regional highways and roads, I'm not so worried about being around town.
Sure.
But yeah, for the regional areas, I thought I need that. I need to see where the gravel roads go. And all that
I won't do that, and not because of any other reason, but the fact that I hate folding them. Simple as that.
Oh, it's a book.
Oh, it's a book. Okay. You don't remember the whole book?
No.
I literally remember once having the kids at Outback Splash, and the quick fold out enclosures, to keep the sun off the kids and everything like that. Little pop tents kind of thing. Yeah. That got thrown in the bin because I couldn't close the bloody thing. So I feel the same way. Brand new in the packet. Boom, boom, boom. It went together beautifully. And I'm not the only one, by the way. 3 blokes gave it a go. None of us could do it. With the ladies in our lives giving commentary, which is wasn't quite very
helpful.
No, but it's the same as how I feel about maps. So there you are. But look, physical, tangible things are still vitally important, right? And as I say, everything in life is pretty much to solve a problem, and cash solves a problem, right? I mean, I always carried a little bit of cash because of there are situations where you might go, their F-boss is down, this, that, whatever, or it could be this amazing thing called privacy, right? Where I don't want people knowing, right, what I'm spending my money on, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. That whole, look, if you've got nothing to hide business, right? Bull, absolute bull. You need to have privacy. It's a human right. It's not a privilege.
We're losing privacy with these sort of smartphones.
We are.
And that's a big concern. There are now a market opening up for those that aren't smartphones, but have the operations to use all that apps and that sort of stuff that are coming out in the United States.
Cool.
In the Patriot sort of move back, as Patriots United, this sort of stuff. We want our privacy back. But you're absolutely right when it comes to cash. The privacy is there. I mean, look, it's not entirely private. You can be tracked in terms of ATMs know which bills they have. There's a little code on each of the bills, and they can do that. And then if you spend that at the till, they can go, okay, that bill, we can trace that from that ATM, and so took that out at that time. So it can be traced, but it's a lot harder to do that and a lot more time consuming to do that.
But I mean, even electronically, you now are the product, right? Like people go, we talk about things being free. Well, nothing's free, right? Nothing's free. So you are the product. I mean, the other day I put a video up. I don't know if you saw it, but I couldn't believe this. Okay. And it ties into the cash thing, and follow me on this, just about your own personal privacy. I sat at my laptop and a mate bought me a cup of coffee. Thanks, mate. No worries. So anyway, I grabbed the coffee and I picked the coffee up and I drank it while I was working on my laptop. And up says, AI says, hello. Hi, Aaron. Do you feel like a cup of coffee?
Wow.
Yep. It saw the coffee cup in front of the little webcam there, and it literally said,
on your laptop,
on my laptop, my personal laptop.
Wow.
Yeah. So okay, that to me, I mean, that is just marketing to just a bridge too far. But that comes back to, well, yeah, Aaron, do you feel like a coffee? Yes, you idiot. I've got one right here.
No, I feel like bashing an AI.
Yes, and the truth is actually I wanted my Elevate, but my mate bought me a coffee, so therefore you're gracious and had the coffee instead. But the I can see this happening one day. I'm going to lose it at one of those items. I really am. My laptop's going to see how far it can fly.
I get annoyed at Siri.
She knows far too much about me. So yeah, look, I think cash is the same thing. Like whether it be just the privacy of you want to buy something off marketplace, and or you don't want your wife or significant other knowing that you've gone to Hungry Jack's to buy a Whopper with cheese. Just come on, right? Come on. It's okay to have a little privacy in life.
It is. It is. Sometimes it's necessary because, my wife and I connect our phones through the same iTunes account.
Right. There you go.
Right. So whenever it's my birthday and the family are trying to organize, hey, Chris, what do you think Derek wants for his birthday? I see all the conversations. And I'm like, I don't want that.
A mate of mine was organizing a surprise party for his wife weeks ago, and a similar kind of thing happened.
Yeah,
good old technology just links it all together. And away goes. Never mind. We had a nice day.
Good.
Oh dear. All right. So look, cash is king, and I do want to say this: 2 things. I'm glad that the legislation's been cleared up on that front. I'm glad that they're promoting the fact that it's illegal to refuse cash.
Mm.
One thing, and I also love the movement of the people. There are places now that will only take cash, right? And they're pushing cash, and well, pushing is probably the wrong word.
I wouldn't do that as a business owner. I wouldn't restrict it just to cash only, because then you're going to miss out on sales.
I know, and it's tough enough as it is.
To me, I go, you know what? Make it convenient for the customer to do business with you.
Yeah.
If they choose to do it by card, great. If they don't want to do it by card, great.
Well, here's the great thing to do, right? Just go to anyone. Okay, no problem. Cash is 10% discount. Okay, card is the 1.5 or whatever percentage they charge you, right?
Yep.
So there's an incentive. You're not refusing someone, but you are incentivizing.
I've even had, will you accept crypto?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Let me call the accountant and work out how to pay GST on it, and I'll get back to
you. I paid my dry cleaning in a similar kind of way once.
Yeah.
How good's that? Yeah.
So, I think it's a business owner, you got to take it as it comes.
Thoroughly agree, mate. Well, okay. So look, that I think it's a really interesting point. Let's talk about WA stuff. Sorry, not WA. See, parochial. Let's talk about Australian stuff, right? Okay. We've got tax coming up.
Yes.
Right? Now, the smart people would have already been months ahead of this, getting their tax organised. Clearly, I'm not one of those smart people. So I'll be chasing some advice after the show. But now is the time to jump right at it, right?
I actually think, planning for me should really happen in May.
Okay.
Because you do not want to leave it to the last week in June, because there's just not enough time to do it. Your accountant is inundated with calls.
Oh yeah.
On the 30th of June, and a lot more people are leaving it to the last minute. In fact, it was interesting. I was chatting to my accountant last week, and I was saying, "How's the ATO going?" Because they do a lot of the relationship between their clients and the ATO.
Sure.
And they said that they're getting more ruthless in terms of business owners trying to pay their tax, and they're going, no, we're not going to accept those payment terms and this sort of stuff. It's that or nothing. I said, oh, that's really smart. Putting business owners out of business, and we have them on welfare, and the government keeps paying more for it. I mean, it's just a vicious circle.
Here's me going to get political for a moment. Okay, I have noticed a particular issue when it comes to this government compared to the previous one. Under the Labor government, there seem to be a lot more threats to business owners. There seems to be a lot more need of the cash flow, right? Now, I think that the books are so out of balance with the Australian Labor Party that they have a cash flow problem. I really do.
Well, they do. And it was the Liberals who spent all the money during COVID.
Oh, no question about it. Oh, look, both of them, the old...
And the state governments too.
Yeah, are you right wing, are you left wing? You know what? I just want to shoot the bird out of the sky. The fact is, both of them are as bad as each other. But I'm seeing a particular aggression coming from the Labor government, and to me that suggests that there's problems in
there's cash flow issues, absolutely. There's no question. I mean, you've also got the uncertainty of what's going on in the world, and we'll get into that in just a few moments. The whole game is changing on the international front. So that means anytime somebody's in pressure financially, that often flows on to the next person. So if somebody has to pay a bill and they can't, they start looking, who owes me money?
I'm living that life. That's the problem, because one person's under pressure, so therefore that it flows on.
It's exactly a ripple effect.
It's a real problem,
and a lot of it's caused by the banks as well. And my big concern is the banks and the government are working together too closely these days. So. But let's pull back for a minute. If you're an employee, there's not a lot you can claim these days, right? And that's just the reality, because about 10 years ago they closed a lot of the stuff that you could claim. Uniforms, yes. Generally, if that's in line with work, if you are needing to pay for education that you're already in a job that already provides your income, that's generally claimable. It's protective wear, depending on what industry you're in. There are all those sort of usual type claims. And of course, for the mum and dad investor who are into the investment property, they claim everything as expenses and holding that property, as well as deduct that from their income from that. A lot of accountants are into this negative gearing. I think it's a terrible strategy personally. And the reason I do that is because you never do an investment to make a tax break. You do an investment because you think it'll make you money.
That's right.
And I think a lot of accountants get that the wrong way around. And I think that's something to bear in mind. If you get a tax break, that's a bonus. But it shouldn't be the reason to do an investment.
But primarily, I think a lot of people do that to lower their tax, right? I mean,
the problem is getting caught out in that game. If you lose your job, then you're stuck with a big bill. And you're negatively geared. If you are in a situation where we had a flat real estate market for a long time, and everybody else is winning, but the investor. So the bank's winning, the tenant's winning, the government's winning because they have to provide housing for the tenant. So it's kind of like, who's paying the bill here? if it goes wrong,
Okay.
you know, the tenant goes, see you later. The property manager goes, we'll get another client. The banks go, hey, we'll find another loan to lend out. It's the landlord that's taking the risk there.
Of course. Okay. I sit here. I'm Aaron Blogs, right? Okay. I've got the nice pay as you go job, right? You know, maybe work for the government. Honestly, how can I lower my tax if I'm pay as you go? I've got just a normal salary, normal wages. It doesn't vary, kind of thing. What can I do?
Generally, the rule is any expenses that cost you to generate an income are deductible.
Okay.
That's basically the premise of how it works.
Sure.
So, you know, if you, as I mentioned before, if you have required to have a uniform, great. Yep. If you are required to travel for work outside of your local area, it's not from home to the office, it's to, you know, over east or that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
those
but hang on that
deductible.
front. Well, okay. Now, for the last, 3 or 4 years, we've had a lot of people working from home, right? So now they're encouraging people back in the office. Now, if some are working at home and some are working in an office, surely, in my eyes, the person who is driving to the office should get a tax deduction for that. In my eyes.
In your eyes, yes. Is that the eyes and rulings of the ATO?
No, certainly not. That's why
that's the game you're playing.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you in principle, because, you know, if you do work from home, you can claim a certain amount of office expenses from your home.
Yeah.
If you meet certain criteria, you know, and electricity and utilities and all that sort of
stuff. Even a rental aspect as well of how much space you use.
If you have a room dedicated to an office and that sort of stuff, that's what they're looking at. How many hours a week do you spend in that space, etc. So
okay. So I mean, the days of having a side business, another business, whatever that you can, use for expenses, is that still a viable thing for a pay-as-you-go person? Or?
Absolutely. I think it's the best way to get in terms of tax breaks. It's a way to, the biggest difference between the wealthy and poor is that the poor pay tax first and then they receive their income.
Yes.
Whereas the wealthy pay for their expenses first and then they pay tax.
Yeah.
And it's the difference between what we call post-tax income and pre-tax income.
Absolutely.
And so to really get wealthy, you want to play in the game of being in pre-tax income in terms of knocking off your expenses. So as a business owner, they can, or investor, they can, all the expenses that, cost to generate that can be written off.
Yep.
So internet, write that off. Computers, write that off. Depending on the business, of course. Tools, often vehicles, a lot can be done in that aspect.
There's a reason why the most popular vehicle on Australian roads is a dual cab ute, right?
Well, they're now wanting to tax that.
Oh, yeah, but it's all right. It's all right. Just get in your electric car, mate. It'll be fine. Not going to be drama. Everybody will be happy. Shiny, happy people.
How to get people offside.
Oh, you know what? Every time I hear
like shoot yourself in the foot policy.
It is crazy. You're the Labor government who your entire premise, apart from the fact that people don't know you're socialists, right? Okay. But your entire premise of existence is that you look after the worker. You're the workers' party.
Working class man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, geez. Cue the Jimmy Barnes. But that's the reality, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're taxing a ute, right? And this is, as I say, what most men and women out there who have got, have got their own business, they've got the dual cab ute for that very reason, mate. Like, it is just insane. That's the compromise they make. That is why they make dual cab utes. When I was a boy, like, I remember I had a commercial vehicle many, many years ago. And in fact, I've had many over the years, right? Because I've been in business and done physical things, right? So, okay.
And you still have one.
I still have one. Exactly right. Now, and mine's very fancy. I do this to wind the windows up, right? But that's kind of my point, is they used to be very sort of basic and rudimentary and do the job, right? Okay. Plastic, everything. Now you get in them, it's like, hello.
Yeah.
How luxurious is it? How nice is it? It's got, it's got a PlayStation stuck to the dashboard. I mean, it's just, everything's at your fingertips. Everything's lovely, right? And that's because obviously people are using them as tax deductions. People are using their everyday car as their work car. And there's a lot of positives to that. And if you're looking at the environmental thing, that's a good thing, because, you've got one vehicle rather than having to have a specialized work vehicle as well. So there's a lot of positives there, right? Now, for a Labor government, one for the people, for the worker, to go, we're going to tax the hell out of it. And you know what you can do? I've got this great alternative for you. You can buy a Chinese ute, right? Okay, from our sponsors, the CCP. It's the Australian Labor Party, obviously, not Edge. But the Labor Party is sponsored by the CCP, right? So okay, you can buy a ute from them. And no problem. Now, if you can get the same thing in a petrol or diesel, you'll be paying $55,000. But it's okay. If you buy it in electric, it'll be $90,000, right? And it will be absolutely, completely throw in the bin, nothing to see here in a maximum of 5 years. Wow, that's great for the economy. That's great for the environment. Gee, that's great for everybody, right? Just drives me batty. Bad politics makes bad finances.
And built to last, and that's a huge concern. And most people aren't calculating what is the resale cost of those special EVs. And I don't think they really work for Australia, but that's just my opinion.
And I'm not completely against electric cars. Like you know, if you're in the middle of a city and you need a city car, something that, you know, small or whatever, I'm not against. I can actually see some value in that. As they push more and more people into the cities and more extension cords running out through the trees to plug these things in, it gets a bit ludicrous. But I can see value. Look, there's you know, we're here in the city area, and they have those little electric scooters around the place where you can get on one and you ride to your location, then you dump it there.
It's so dangerous.
Oh, I want to give it a go. I'm looking forward to
dangerous.
Yeah,
I've seen so many accidents. I heard about so many accidents. I was like, yeah.
Oh well, just hold my beer because I'm coming. I'm looking forward to it. Well, there's one down the road. It's bright orange. I mean, it's
I know, but they go so fast, and it's so you come off that thing.
Yeah, I know, but I built years of developing this. I'll bounce. I'm okay. All right, mate. What's next on the agenda there?
Well, I think we need to have a look at how big the whole BRICS thing is, right? Because
yes, we do.
I think what's you hear about it, but when you start collating the data together and putting it all on the same page, which I was doing this morning, I'm going, my goodness, this is huge. This is just coming from every single angle. So let's have a look at what's been happening. I've called this part, you know, BRICS are gaining momentum.
Okay.
Zimbabwe.
Yep.
President Emerson Mnangagwa. I know I've butchered the name.
No, I think you've done well.
Cast President Vladimir Putin as my dear brother and said Russia was a consistent ally of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
All right. So you see now that they're starting to make inroads into Africa. Remember that Zimbabwe has just gone onto the gold standard as well, and has mixed it with precious metals and other currencies. So they have been looking at this. Now, put this in context, all right, for those who don't up to speed on the whole BRICS thing, how it came about, is that you've got a bunch of nations who decided to do deals with each other.
Yep.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And so those nations started doing deals with each other. It really got heightened when the Iraq conflict, beg your pardon, when the
they're all the same.
But
they really are.
Saying,
yeah,
clear my mind.
Okay,
Ukraine is what. So sorry to Ukrainians who are listening to this. When the Russian-Ukrainian conflict went to part, they're basically the
pipeline and all
the SWIFT banking system basically was like used as weaponization against the Russian ruble. Okay, you're not going to do this. So Russia's got to find out how to do deals now. So Russia's looked at things like putting the ruble back onto the gold standard. They were kind of the first to go back to it. They've been doing deals and talking about doing deals in their own currency, developing their own currency now. And this is because all these other nations are waking up going, whoa, if they can do that to us, and they can do that to Russia, they can do it to us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you've got all this happening, these maneuverings going on. BRICS is now also making roads into Turkey. This is a really interesting nation because Turkey geographically is at the border of Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. It's very strategically positioned.
Absolutely.
And the Kremlin is welcoming Turkey's reported desire to join BRICS. There's heightened interest in this group. If you look at some of the nations other than the ones I've mentioned that are in there, we're looking also at Ethiopia, Iran, Egypt, United Arab Emirates. These are, oil producing areas as well. And of course, for those who don't know, the petrodollars always have to be done in US dollars. So oil deal is required, it be done in US dollars. Well, these nations are now doing it in their local currency. Thailand has also expressed interest in being involved in BRICS. So that now you see it moving from Africa into Asia, into Turkey. It's reaching and crossing many, many continents.
Well, it's in South America. So, it's right across the globe, really.
Now, this is another thing that's really fascinating. They have their own games every year in the BRICS.
I did not know this.
And 97 countries want to attend the BRICS 2024 in June.
Wow.
In Russia.
Okay.
So these nations are wanting to be a part of this in the Kazan region between the 12th and the 24th of June.
Yep.
and play together. And of course, we know that these kind of games are very interesting. A lot of politics goes on in these things. I'm sure the athletes don't like that because they get trained for years on end, sometimes their whole lives, and then they can't go and perform when they boycott them, this sort of stuff, and want to keep politics out of the sport. But let's face it, Olympics games has always been a lot of grandstanding by nations.
Now, I'm going to throw in on this about something I only discovered about 2 weeks ago, right? I've always been very, I'm never pro Hitler at all, obviously, but I've always, it's very damning of the way that he treated Jesse Owens, refused to shake his hand and all of that, right? And that's a story that so much of Olympic history and political history has been based on. Okay. Couple of weeks ago, I actually saw a thing and read the details on it. Apparently, it never happened. Apparently, he did not refuse to shake Jesse Owens's hand, and apparently, the African American athletes were treated very, very well in Berlin, and so it's actually this is, and again, who do you believe, right? Who do you believe? But we've had all of those years of that's 90 years of propaganda there, okay, that we've had this belief, right? So that makes people of color be angry, that makes people for the West be angry, or it creates, and everybody hates Hitler, so we've got the common enemy. But if it's not true, like these games have been used for political and financial manipulation of the world.
Well, let me get back to that point, but you're now getting artificial intelligence interpreting the speeches of Hitler now.
Yeah.
You can actually see what he actually was saying in context of that time, which is really, really interesting.
It is.
But back to your point, yes, the games that Hitler did, excuse me, the games that Hitler did were really the first televised event, and it was very much Goebbels' propaganda piece for Germany and building the Aryan race and that sort of stuff. Cinematography was, they really went to the nth degree to capture that, and that has really set a precedent in terms of how the Olympic Games has since been covered over time. So yeah, you're quite right. It's interesting you bring up that Olympic Games in particular.
Yeah. And as I say, I'm not going to in any way be pro any of that regime or any of that took place, but you're right. I mean, Goebbels was the man who invented propaganda effectively, and there's every 4 years we see this ridiculous spectacle of it being politicized. I'm old enough to remember the 1980 Olympics, right, where obviously the US didn't go to, back then, the USSR, and were used it very negatively, and obviously really shot their own athletes in the foot on that. And then you see 4 years later in Los Angeles the opposite happening, and you just think, oh, for goodness sake, so for them to have their own games, it kind of says we're stepping out.
Well, they have them yearly, apparently.
I didn't know this.
And this is really, really interesting. So you're seeing this play to, these nations. What happens, I would imagine, behind the scenes are deals being done, right? The athletes do their thing and all that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, there's the long lunches and dinners and all that sort of stuff.
How things get done.
Where deals happen. And that's where people do business. And in terms of government, that's where they do government deals. What's also interesting is, so you've got all these nations that are being approached to join the BRICS, but then couple this with the BRICS are dumping US debt in bonds and buying gold. We've seen Russia dumping $4.5 billion in US bonds in recent times over the last couple of years as the US pressed sanctions on Russia in February 2022, invading Ukraine. They're offloading these bonds. This is US debt. And China was also a big buyer of that.
Yes.
And it seems that they're doing the same thing and just offloading it. And so that is an economic strategic move as well in terms of gaining support in terms of what they're trying to do.
Thoroughly agree. Just looking up at the screen there, we've got some comments coming through, and as I say, we'd normally have Travis here who would be looking after that. So we're looking forward to the boy getting back. But in the meantime, you have to put up with me and not knowing what I'm doing. So we've got now, well, I don't know how you pronounce it, but I'm just going to call you DP. That's probably the easiest way. You've got some really good points there. Look, the mustache man was a huge admirer of Jesse, right? That's actually what I literally heard and then followed up. I thought, no, I want to know more information. So I read about that just about 2 weeks ago. My whole life I believed he shunned him, and I'm like really mega anti-racism because of my own background. So for me, I do look out for it. So that's a very good issue and a good point to make. I really appreciate that. And you're right, absolutely right. This is not the only thing that we've been lied to. Let's be honest. There's been so many lies over such a long time. The West does do propaganda very well, DP, on that, mate. I see you tongue in cheek and really, and I agree with that. And I also want to thank, also, I saw Lisa put a message in there earlier as well, which I will find, which is great. There we go. There we go. Lisa has put in a message. Oh, thank you very much. Look at that. She's such a wealth of knowledge, listening while I'm working. Well, good to see someone's working hard.
Good on you, Lisa.
Appreciate that very much so. But look, I very, very lucky to come in here and have, quite frankly, look, the wealth of your information. It is great, mate. It is the greater wealth. And, you know, with your experience, the work you do with Blue Sky Factory, it's brilliant, mate. And I will say it until the cows come home. It's just changed my opinion. Absolutely. It really has. The knowledge that I have gained from doing just one of your courses, I'd like to do more. Maybe I should get onto that. I'll have to do that while I'm asleep, the way I'm going with time, but never mind. But honestly, I'll recommend anyone. So yeah, look, get on board straight onto it. Blue Sky Factory. What's the web address, mate?
.com.au, blueskyfactory.com.au. No E in the blue.
Beautiful. All right, mate. Next subject, or where are we going?
Well, that was pretty much. I just wanted to highlight the BRICS.
Yeah.
And look, there's a lot of moving parts here. But I think you hear this one story. You know, Russia dumps 4.5 billion in US bonds. You go, okay, yeah, cool. Oh, yeah, now they're looking at developing their own crypto space and that sort of stuff. Okay, yeah, okay. But when you start piecing them all together, you can start seeing the bigger moves that are coming at play here. And you're seeing a lot of these nations wanting to move there. And I think, as far as Australia is concerned, I've said it before. I think it's going to be interesting to see where they play. In fact, you've just reminded me, there is a piece that Putin has come out and said recently, and I'd like us to hear on video, that he's talking about what is going on in the United States in relation to what's been happening as far as the thing with Trump is concerned. And this is a really thing. I want to pick up on the relationship that Trump and Putin have.
Okay, absolutely. Now, I believe this is in Russian with English subtitles.
No, this one's in English.
Okay. Let's have a listen.
Or not, their alleged leadership in democracy, they are burning it down to the root, to the ground, because across the world, it is obvious that this persecution of Trump, especially in court, on the charges that were based on some events that took place many years ago without any direct evidence. All this is just using the judicial system for this internal political struggle directly. For us in Russia, it is obvious. I'm sure it is obvious for the UK, for the entire world. People believe this. And in the United States, people believe this as well. Because after this ruling by the court, when the jury gave their verdict guilty, will show that Mr. Trump's rating increased by 6%, and his donation campaign became even more successful. And what does it mean? It means that people in the United States, they do not believe the judicial system, the court system that is making such decisions. On the contrary, they believe that these decisions, they have a political ground. And strange as it may seem, in foreign affairs, in internal affairs, in economic affairs as well, because current administration is making one mistake after another, one after another. Sometimes it comes as a great surprise when you look at what's happening. So we are looking at it from the sidelines. We have never interfered with the internal political processes in the United States. We're not going to. We'll see where it goes, where it leads. I would like to conclude with what I started. For us, the outcome from what we believe is not going to have any great significance. We are going to work with any president elected by the American people.
Now, this is really interesting because I don't know if you remember when Trump was running for his presidency back in 2016. And he was asked by the media, you know, what do you make of Putin?
Yep.
And his response surprised me. He said, well, I've never met the man.
Yeah.
And it said to me, he's keeping an open mind on
That's
this
right.
guy.
No preconceived ideas.
And he's like, you know, he was about building relationship with these. Now, Trump did a big whirlwind tour.
He did.
And seeing many of these diplomats. So this is an interesting response from Putin. It says to me, the Tucker Carlson interview showed us that Putin was a smart man. He could recite decades and decades of Russian histories from, I think, the 1500s. It was.
Yeah, decades. We're talking centuries, absolutely.
Right up to the present day, which was extraordinary. I mean, how many leaders and prime ministers and presidents could do that of their own nation history? So he understands how the Russians think and the whole culture behind it and what's going on here. These comments show insight in terms of what's happening to Trump in the United States, because he's picking up on the feel of the nation and how they really do feel, that the Americans are feeling about their current leadership and what they're doing to their former president, I should say. So this is really telling. Now, I look at this and I wonder, what is the relationship now with Trump and Putin? Now,
you have got everyone with a tinfoil hat ready to go on this one.
Because, I mean, these leaders still, I'm sure, talk to each other. You see Obama running off to Downing Street, right?
Yeah.
Just a few months ago, right? He's still in there talking at the round table there, or the long table there. These guys they still have a diplomacy role even after they finished in their role. And so you wonder what's going on there. I wouldn't be surprised if the two men have high respect for each other.
I think they might.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats leapt on that and gone, hey, you guys have interfered with the election and all that, all Russian was bad, did the election interference.
Not to be true, obviously.
Yeah, which is, they leapt on that. It's a really interesting one how this plays out. Now, why am I bringing this up? From an economic perspective, last week we showed the footage of Trump saying what he did about cryptocurrency.
Yes.
He said, I want to keep it. He said, I want America to be leading in cryptocurrency and there will be no CBDC.
So important.
He said this at the libertarian discussion.
So not even his crowd. This is the thing.
Yeah. And so he says that, and I think to myself, here is the BRICS nations trying to do deals, going back to gold standards, trying to develop their own cryptocurrency. And Trump, I'm wondering if he sees the writing on the wall for the US dollar and the SWIFT system, because it's so antiquated and old. He's going, all right, let's maneuver and we're going to go this direction. And America still has strength in leading in terms of how currencies are issued in the world and developed.
A billionaire businessman would have far more idea about what's going on in the world financially than a 50, 60 a year professional politician. Simple as that.
So I think this is an interesting move. Now, if we get up the next video here, this shows Putin's view on US debt at the moment. So he understands the economics of the situation he's playing with America. Have a listen to this.
Никакого другого залога, что называется, да? Кроме доверия к американской экономике, в сегодняшней мировой финансовой системе не существует. И, конечно, Соединенные Штаты эксплуатируют свое монопольное положение на мировом финансовом рынке. На этой эксплуатации они серьезно зарабатывают. По данным, которые есть в открытом доступе, Соединенные Штаты, условно, задолжали мировой экономике $54,3 триллиона. Из чего это складывается?
Now, unfortunately, that's not in English, but there are subtitles for those watching visually. And he's talking about the debt there of the United States and how it's taken 54 point whatever trillion out of the global economy. And so it's interesting to hear the other side of the story in terms of, hey, this is the effect that's having on our economies in the world. They're basically saying in these maneuverings, we want a more even playing field when it comes to doing deals between each other.
And why wouldn't they? Honestly, and I think something you said earlier before with the Trump relationship with Putin, right? Is it's two little things. One, I would just say that I believe, yes, I think there's a lot of respect there, and I think that two men who respect themselves and each other to that level will be far more successful than all playing this adversary carry on, okay, of being on two different sides. The other thing I was going to sort of bring to mention is the fact that when we're talking about before, when Putin was talking about the lawfare and the fact that how the justice system was used and all kind of thing. Now, for him to say that publicly, just put into perspective, he's a former member of the KGB. Right now, back in the bad old days of the KGB, people were thrown in jail for anything. Just basically, if you disagreed with the government, off you went. Right. So this is a man who's. I mean, look, you could go, is he being dishonest, or has he literally been the journeyman? And over that time, has he developed as the world has?
I think it's interesting too to watch the relationship Trump built with, as he labeled him, Rocket Man, North Korea, Kim Jong-un.
Yes,
and he was. He was calling them all the inflammatory sort of stuff there, but he was the first president to go over there and walk across the border like that. And what came out of those discussions, as far as we could understand, was that rather than going to war together, let's do a deal where we make North Korea great again, type of thing. Let's build beautiful golf courses. Let's make it wealth rather than dropping all these bombs. Let's do this. That is a clever way to negotiate. It
certainly is.
And rather than kill people, let's make us all wealthy. And that really is, I think, an approach to wealth that is refreshing. There's a movement from Kingdom Initiatives, and they call All Shall Prosper.
Right.
I love that line. There's enough in the deal for everyone to prosper. And anytime you do a business deal at someone else's expense, well, guess what? They don't want to do business with you again.
That's right. You burnt that bridge.
And if you put somebody out of business, right, you're not paying for them because they end up on welfare. So the better way to do the deal is everybody wins, whether it be a business joint venture between two different businesses. The customer also has to win the deal as well. Everybody wins, everybody's happy. And that's the art of negotiation. This principle is applied to politics and world politics. You see a big difference because lives are spared. It's not about power. It's not about greed. And hopefully there's less bloodshed in the process.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, from grassroots level, you see this every day. If you have a bad experience with someone, you don't want to deal with them again. The old real estate agent from the old Edge, which is, they made the move and the transition so difficult, right? And I now know that I will never, when I see them come up again, I will never deal with them again, and I will never say a positive thing about them, right? Because they burnt the bridges on the way out, right? And exactly, this is, it's a very small thing, but you're talking about doing this on an international, relations scale. How important is that? Absolutely. Everybody needs to win out of this, because then the relationship will be stronger and everybody can move forward and be productive. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, mate. Fantastic. Now, what other subjects have you got for us today, or have we
can talk about this further? I think what we need to look at, Aaron, is the whole, get past the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Say what is actually going on. Where is this going? What is this doing? You can look at, there is more applications going on with the BRICS. There's more nations wanting to sign up. And rather than go, oh, where does that put us? Go, why? Why is that happening? What is it that's attracting to them?
Is this an opportunity, right? Like, rather than go, okay, look, let's butt heads over it, right?
Yeah.
Is this an opportunity for us? I think it is. I think getting back on the gold standard is absolutely vital to moving forward. Well, or a standard of whatever happens to be, something.
The banking cartel has controlled it for how many centuries? And it's a case of, we can print money and be as rich as we want.
Yes.
And it doesn't represent anything. And that's been what has really, really concerned a lot of people. And this is the thing that you've got to remember when dealing with wealth. Not only just be fair and everybody wins in the deal, but, what is it backed? What is true wealth?
What is true wealth?
What is it that's in the deal? That's a powerful thing.
I think true wealth is something that has just come up on the questions here. We see Jed there. We see Carter's Corner there, which would be Mr. Travis Carter, of course, Mr. Carter. True wealth is being able to afford long pants, apparently. So there's too many comments about my legs. There's nothing wrong with my legs, okay? Just leave the things alone. Let them breathe. Let them breathe, all right? They are not creating any problems internationally, right? So maybe we could start a GoFundMe or some sort of campaign. I don't know. To give more pants to people on the street. I don't know.
You never know.
You never know. But look, all jokes aside, I think that having a gold standard, having financial, having the notes, we're talking about cash so much before, but having the value of it tied to something is so vitally important. I look at people who put their money in the bank. Oh, I've got money in the bank. Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. Absolutely great. But you're losing money, right? Like you're losing money with inflation. You go, okay. Oh, look, I put $100 in the bank. Well, no, you haven't. You put $97 in the bank. Oh, hang on. Next year you've put 94, whatever. It's drop.
Things have changed. I mean, I was looking at a graph where they track and time travel through time and show what is swapping around. Well, you look at the global reserves of international currencies,
sure,
like the euro and the US dollar and gold, etc., and how those play out. It's been since about 2009, gold has just started to come through and be the really valued thing in terms of central banks going back to that.
Okay.
And so, the dollar is not, especially, we've got to look at this. Why is it losing money? Well, it's because of inflation. Okay. Inflation wasn't racing away as quickly as it has been since the last couple of years. We've seen a big turnaround.
Crazy.
So that's one of the reasons why gold and silver, precious metals, are seen as a bit of a safe haven.
Yep. Thoroughly.
But before inflation was occurring, the central banks were buying it up like there was no tomorrow, and the demand for it was going up and increasing as well. You look at some nations and how they play. The euro is going to be really interesting. Europe, where it goes with all of this, and the integrity of the euro as well. Because
what's your thought? Okay, so I was never for the euro. Okay, but then again, look, it's not like I've spent a lot of my time there or I live there, so from that point of view, what's my opinion worth? But I don't know, to me it looked a whole lot like communism. I like the fact that all the different countries had their own economy and they were able to trade their value as they should. To me, I saw it as a negative thing, and obviously we saw what happened with Greece. When Greece fell, look what it did to the euro. Look at the damage it did. Look how it damaged other nations.
Western Germany really suffered from that. I mean, they were hugely prosperous.
Yeah.
And then they're getting dragged down by that. And I think that's what people overlooked, is it sounds all great in theory if it goes right, but what if the deal goes wrong? And that's what you were finding is irresponsible economic practice going on in some nations. And it's like a lead balloon on everyone else. Yeah. Look, I'm with you. What came with the euro was also the politics of it.
Of course.
And I think one of the big reasons that the UK got out was because they had to have an open border. And this is
and it's worked so well for Germany.
See, what I'm pointing out is the tie between money and politics. Right? It's always a deal going on. Okay. And so that was bad for England because they had to let people in that they didn't necessarily want to let in. The additional thing is, okay, you got a pool of money. Thankfully for England, they kept the British pound.
Yes,
and so they didn't get that. So it was easy to default back to that when they went to Brexit. I understand why smaller nations in Europe would want to get more economic advantage because they feel that their economies are small and, it's the old world way of doing things. I get it. You can do those through alliances and treaties and agreements.
That's what I would suggest.
Yeah. Rather than go in, there's a difference between a joint venture and a partnership. And a partnership is like a corporate marriage, right?
Yes.
You want to know who you are doing business with if you're going to get into a partnership, because it goes wrong. The exit strategies can be really difficult, and it's better to have those agreements in place prior to commencing the partnership when everything's amicable, than trying to unwind it when things aren't amicable anymore.
And that's a very good point. Really set those ground rules. So have an exit strategy.
Having a clear exit for these nations to leave the European Union, you really want to be looking at the fine print on that as well.
You would. But you look at how much trouble the UK had trying to actually release themselves from it, right?
Oh, it's costing them millions.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Every day.
Yeah. And it's still a big issue. I mean, the meat industry is massively affected. Well, there's every industry, but just the amount of red tape at every level. I just think, look, politicians and bureaucrats are just the bane of my existence. They just seem to be in everything. They've got their hands in every pie.
My concern is that big organizations, big government like that can be swayed by big lobby groups. And I think we've seen that play out. And a little nation can be swept up in an agenda that really doesn't want to have to play a part of. And that's the danger in terms of joining and linking, is because you're entering in a national marriage type of spoke where we are embracing the culture of everyone, as opposed to recognizing our own individual cultures and histories. Now, I know culture changes as time goes through, and time, we recognize that. But there's a lot of things that I don't think are thought through when people go to the polling booth and go, yeah, we want this, or no, we don't want this.
Yeah, well, most people who are in the polling booth are thinking about their what do you call it, a democracy sausage, right? Most people just, this is something I have to get. Oh, I just want to get back to my Saturday, right? Most people are like that. Just get it done, and that's why early polling's become very popular. But Australians, and I can speak as an Australian, we don't take it anywhere near as seriously as we should. Yeah, you should do your research on every single person that's on that ballot that you need to talk. You talk to them if you can. You're making a decision on the future for your kids there. Make it well.
Yeah, I mean, Australia is different too because we've got a party policy type thing. So you're not really, in some ways, voting for the individual, depending on the party. Like know with the Democrats, the Labor. Socialist Democrat Party, the Labor Party,
that's right.
They can't cross the floor, and so that puts them in a precarious position. Even if there's no conscience vote there where they can go, I can cross the floor here. My constituent is saying we want this,
and people need to know this about the Greens, right? Okay, because most people don't know the Greens are an absolute socialist party, right? Okay, they are the watermelons. They're green on the outside, red on the inside, right? Every decision they make. So many years ago, I actually was approached by the Greens as far as, literally they were looking for candidates, right? So they sort of had a bit of a, I don't know, just tested the water with me a bit. And then they told me about how everything has to go to committee, this, that, whatever. Now, I could have, quite frankly, gone and got myself a nice, easy seat in Parliament, right? Okay, I'd get the car, I'd get the goodies, I'd get the nice pay, and I'd say yes, 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 and tick off and do as I'm told and basically live as a socialist, right? Now, I would never do that. I'm just not capable of being that person. But a lot of people are. And when the more questions I asked, it basically came down to the fact that you were not allowed to have your own opinion as a Green. You have to go, and right now we've got this situation with Adam Bant, who's just, look, he's not well. The man's not well, right? And the decisions he's making, and people think, oh, I'm voting for the Greens, I'm voting for the environment. No, you're not. You're absolutely not. So do your research on your individual and the party itself.
Back to your question about the European Union.
Yep.
A lot of smaller nations probably looked at that and thought, this is great because then we get more leverage in that.
Absolutely.
I think what you've got to realize too is that you can develop your own wealth and niche in the global markets. Look at Singapore. Right?
Great example.
Right. Singapore hasn't got a lot of land.
No.
So what has it done? It's made itself an economic powerhouse as far as taxes are concerned, banking is concerned, lending is concerned. Its world of the financial industry is huge. It's become the new Hong Kong, right?
Yes. And what happened to Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they've very cleverly, in terms of politics, put themselves very neutral as far as the nations are concerned. You don't see Singapore rushing to get into the BRICS right now.
No.
You don't see them signing up for the the Four Eyes, as they call them, and those nations as well. They cleverly position themselves in a neutral thing, and they've prospered from it as well.
Very much so.
So I think there's enough wealth for everyone, and you've got to think of as a nation, play it smart. What have you got? What resource do you have? What power do you have in your hand to produce wealth?
Sure. And look, and I'll say it again, wealth is not always about money. It's certainly not. To me, wealth is, the freedom to do the things that you want to do with your life. It's the freedom to spend time with the people you love. People have got to, in my eyes, stop associating wealth with money, okay, and maybe even associate with lifestyle. All right, because it's a different proposition. All right, with that, mate, we've come to the end of the show. Do you have any last thoughts you'd like to close on?
I think there are a lot of people who are trying to look for a bit of a side hustle and get some extra money in. And I think what we've just highlighted now is really important, that you have power in your hand to create wealth.
You do.
You've just got to be smart about it. So you look at some of the tangible assets you might have versus the intangible assets.
Okay.
So tangible assets might be, you have a bit of property, you might have a car, you might have some, stuff that you can touch, see, feel, etc. They're even digital assets these days as well that you've got to consider. But what are some of the intangible assets that you might have they haven't thought about monetizing? So you might have specialized knowledge in a certain area.
Okay. You
could perhaps monetize that. You might, one asset is if you can speak multiple languages, that's a huge asset, right?
Is. I can pretty much cover English and Pig Latin. That's about it. That's all I got. Fact,
you're doing well, mate.
In fact, the former, not so good.
Understand. That's where you bring in AI, right?
That's right.
But I think it's important to start thinking that way in terms of what is something that particularly comes natural to you that you take for granted. We call that a gift.
I really like that.
Because most people look at it and go, that's really hard for me to do. But for you, it's easy, and you don't recognize it because it's so easy. And sometimes that can be monetized as well. So have a good think about that, because I think a lot of people are looking at side hustles right now. And particularly as we come up to tax time, maybe in the new financial year, are there prospects there that you could actually monetize?
That's right. And, tax deductions that you'll then, be able to enjoy.
Mm.
Absolutely. All right, end of the show. Now, what I'm going to do is we'll obviously stop the stream in just a tick, and we'll go back to radio. But I do actually want to sort of dedicate the show, if I can, to Thorin, who we've lost during the past short sort of period of time, and I want to send my love out to the whole family. Simple as that. I think that the Carter family have shown such incredible strength. I debate whether or not I should say this on air, but the love I want to share with you guys, it's really, really important. And I think as a community, we've got to get behind each other. And you guys are so wonderful that's without doubt, that's it's an easy thing to do, to get behind you. All right. So thank you, Thorin, for everything you've brought to us. And we dedicate the show to you. All right. That is it. It's the Greater Wealth here on Edge Radio Australia.